I saw it before I saw him. A lacy maroon bra draped over the back of our dining room chair. The same one my best friend Alexis wore the night she came over, devastated about her breakup 2 weeks ago. I stood frozen, grocery bags hanging from my hands. Then he turned the corner, shirtless, hair messy, holding her favorite wine glass, the one with the gold rim she always insisted on using. My husband Derek, my best friend's wine glass, her bra, our house. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I'd be sick. Derek froze when he saw me. His face went white, then red, then something that looked almost like relief. Naomi, his voice cracked. This isn't how I wanted you to find out. Not, this isn't what it looks like. Not, I can explain. Just acknowledgement that there was something to find out, that he'd been planning to tell me. Eventually, on his terms. I dropped the groceries. Eggs cracked. Milk leaked across the hardwood floor we'd refinished together last summer. And I backed out the door without saying a single word. My name is Naomi Reyes. And that night was the night I stopped crying for people who wouldn't bleed for me. I sat on the front porch steps in complete shock. My brain couldn't process it. Alexis, my best friend since college, the one who'd been maid of honor at my wedding. Derek, my husband of 4 years, the man I'd built a life with, together, in my house, in my bed. I sat there for maybe 10 minutes, maybe an hour. Time felt broken. Then I heard a car pull up. Alexis. She got out like nothing had happened. Hair perfect, makeup fresh, wearing my oversized cardigan, the gray one I'd been looking for all week. She walked toward me with that same sympathetic face she'd used when listening to me talk about work stress. Naomi, please. I stood up slowly. You were in my bed. I was drunk. It wasn't serious? You were in my bed, I repeated. She had the audacity to look annoyed. You always put work before him. What did you expect? The words hit like ice water. She was blaming me for her betrayal, for sleeping with my husband. Because I worked too much, I stared at her, really looked at her, and realized I'd never actually known this person at all. Leave, I said quietly. Naomi, get off my property before I call the police. She left, and I went back inside to face my husband. Derek sat at the kitchen table, fully dressed now, looking almost bored, like this was an inconvenience. Not a betrayal, not the destruction of our marriage, just an awkward conversation he'd rather avoid. She needed comfort, he said before I could speak. Her breakup was really hard. I didn't mean for it to get this far. His tone was so casual, so practiced, like he'd rehearsed this. How long? I asked. He didn't answer, just looked at his hands. How long? Does it matter? That was the answer. Not weeks, months, maybe longer. I felt something inside me shut off, not break, not shatter. Just turn off, like flipping a switch. All the love, all the trust, all the history, gone, replaced by something cold and clear and focused. I want you out, I said. Naomi, come on. Let's talk about this like adults. Out, tonight. This is my house too. Then we'll let lawyers decide that. His expression changed, surprise, then calculation. You're really gonna throw away 4 years over one mistake? I looked at him. This stranger wearing my husband's face? One mistake would be bad enough. But this wasn't one mistake, was it? He didn't answer, and I walked upstairs to our bedroom, to sleep in sheets they'd touched, in a bed they'd destroyed, knowing tomorrow everything would change. 3 days later, I found out the worst part. They all knew. Our entire friend group, the couples we had dinner with every month, the friends we went camping with, the people I'd called family, they'd known for weeks. I discovered it by accident, a text thread I wasn't supposed to see. Someone's phone screen lighting up at coffee, a group chat called Weekend Plans. My name nowhere on it, but plenty about me in it. Should we tell Naomi? Not our place to get involved in their marriage. She's going to find out eventually anyway. Derek said she's been impossible lately. Maybe this will wake her up. They'd discussed it, debated it, and decided I wasn't worth the discomfort of honesty. When I confronted one of them, Vanessa, who I'd known for 6 years, she actually said, we didn't want to get involved. You know how you can be when you're upset. Like I was some ticking emotional bomb, not a person, not someone they supposedly cared about, just drama they wanted to avoid. I blocked every single one of them that day. No explanations, no confrontations, just deleted their numbers and moved on. Because I'd learned something important. Silence is complicity. And I was done with people who chose comfort over loyalty. I needed proof. Not for me, I'd seen enough. but for what was coming. Derek had always been careful about his phone, but his laptop, we'd always shared everything. Until recently, he'd changed all his passwords: email, social media, banking, everything except one, our shared cloud storage, the one we'd set up for vacation photos and household documents. I logged in and found a folder labeled Personal. Inside was everything: messages, photos, voice notes. Not just with Alexis, 2 others. Women I didn't know. Women he'd apparently met through work. One he called my escape in a text to a friend. Another he'd taken to our anniversary restaurant, on our actual anniversary. While I was working late on a presentation, I sat there for 3 hours, reading every message, looking at every photo, listening to voice notes where he complained about me, called me cold, controlling, boring. And I didn't cry, just saved everything. Backed it up in 3 different places. Created a timeline, built a case, because Derek thought he was smart, but he'd left a trail so obvious it was almost insulting. And I was going to use every single piece of it. Derek insisted we try counseling. For closure, he said, to end this properly. I agreed. Not because I wanted to save the marriage, but because I wanted to see how far he'd take the lies. The therapist's office was beige and boring. Inspirational quotes on the walls, a box of tissues on every surface. We sat on opposite ends of a couch. Derek cried. Actually cried. Talked about how lonely he'd been, how I'd been emotionally unavailable, how he'd sought connection elsewhere because I made him feel invisible. The therapist nodded along, asked me if I'd ever shut down emotionally in the relationship, if I'd prioritized work over intimacy, if I'd made Derek feel valued. I stared at her. He's sleeping with my best friend and 2 other women. Infidelity is often a symptom of deeper issues. I stood up. This is insane. Mrs. Ries, please sit down. No. I grabbed my purse. You're not trying to help me heal, you're helping him rewrite the story. Derek looked up, tears still wet on his face. Naomi, please. See you in court. I walked out, realizing that some people will always take the cheater's side, because it's easier to blame the person who was betrayed than to confront the person who did the betraying. I met the lawyer in a coffee shop across town, somewhere Derek would never go. Her name was Patricia Holden, 50-something. Sharp eyes, no-nonsense demeanor. I showed her everything. The texts, the photos, the timeline, the house documents I'd started digging through. She listened without interrupting, took notes on a yellow legal pad, then looked up at me. Don't leave yet. The house, don't move out no matter what he says or does. Why? Because whoever leaves first looks like they abandoned the marriage. It weakens your position. She leaned forward. And I need you to collect everything: bank statements, credit card records, any documentation about assets, debts, purchases, everything. How long? 2 months, maybe 3. We build an airtight case, then we file. What do I do until then? Smile, play dumb, pretend you're considering reconciliation. She saw my expression. I know it's hard, but this is about winning, and you want to win, don't you? I thought about Alexis in my cardigan, Derek's tears in therapy, the friends who'd stayed silent. Yes, I said, I want to win. Good. Then we do this my way. I went home that night, smiled at Derek, and started building a file on my laptop. Title, exit plan, password protected, hidden, growing every single day. I told my sister everything. Quinn was 2 years younger, but infinitely fiercer. We met for lunch at her apartment. I broke down the entire story, expected sympathy, expected tears. She just got quiet. Then she looked at me with steel in her eyes. Burn it all down. What? Not literally, but metaphorically? Scorched earth. Make him feel every second of what he did to you. Quinn, but do it slowly, strategically. Don't be messy. Be calculated. She grabbed my hands. You've spent 4 years being the good wife, the understanding one, the one who compromised. Her voice was firm. No more. You collect everything. You document everything. And when the time is right, you destroy him legally, financially, socially. That sounds like revenge. It's justice. There's a difference. I looked at my little sister, who'd always been braver than me, who'd never let anyone treat her badly, who was giving me permission to fight back. Okay, I said quietly. Okay, let's burn it down. She smiled. That's my girl. And for the first time since finding that bra, I felt something other than pain. I felt powerful, determined, ready. Derek had no idea what was coming, but he was about to find out. Alexis blocked me on everything: Instagram, Facebook, phone, complete radio silence. But our mutual friend Vanessa, before I blocked her, sent me a screenshot, a photo Alexis had posted, of her wearing my oversized gray cardigan. The one I'd been looking for, the one she'd stolen from my house. Caption: "Healing looks good on me." And underneath a comment from Derek's account. Just a fire emoji. They were parading the affair, making it public, acting like they were some romantic story instead of two people who'd destroyed a marriage. I stared at that screenshot for a long time. Then I opened a new document, and I started writing. Everything. Every detail I remembered. Every conversation. Every lie. Every moment I'd felt something was off, but ignored it. I documented dates, times, locations, cross-referenced them with Derek's late work nights. Built a timeline so detailed, so thorough that no one could deny what had happened. Patricia had said to collect everything, so I did. But I also created a narrative. Because someday, I might need more than just evidence. I might need to tell this story, and when I did, I wanted the receipts. Every single one. The emergency fund started small. 10% from every paycheck. I'd opened the account 3 years ago, separate bank, different branch. Called it my just-in-case fund. In case of emergencies. In case something went wrong. In case I ever needed to leave. I'd never told Derek about it. Never mentioned it. He never asked about my paychecks. Never checked our banking. Just assumed I deposited everything into our joint account like a good wife. But I hadn't. And over 3 years, that 10% had grown, $4,000. Not a fortune, but enough. Enough for a security deposit. Enough for a lawyer retainer. Enough to survive if everything fell apart. Which it just had. I logged into the account, looked at that balance, and felt something close to relief. Because Derek thought he had all the power, thought he controlled everything, thought I was dependent on him. But I'd been preparing for this. Maybe not consciously, maybe not actively, but some part of me had known. Some part of me had been building an escape route. And now I had it. My freedom fund. My safety net. My way out. Derek had underestimated me. He wouldn't make that mistake again. I pulled the house documents from our filing cabinet, the mortgage papers from when we'd bought the place 2 years ago, found the title deed, and my heart stopped. Derek's name was on it. Mine wasn't. I flipped through the pages frantically, looking for my signature. My name. Any evidence that I co-owned this house? Nothing. I grabbed my laptop, logged into our mortgage account, checked the original paperwork we'd submitted. My name had been there. I saw the digital signature, the date, everything. But the filed documents, the official title? Just Derek. He'd removed me, quietly, strategically, probably months ago, while telling me he was handling the refinancing, while I trusted him, while I worked late and didn't ask questions. He hadn't just cheated. He'd planned to leave me with nothing. I took photos of everything, sent them to Patricia. She called me within minutes. This is fraud. Or close enough. What do? Nothing yet. We're building a pattern. This just proves premeditation. He was planning this. For a while, yes, which actually helps us. How? Because it shows this wasn't a mistake. It was calculated, and judges don't like calculated. I hung up, stared at those documents, and realized Derek had never loved me. He'd loved what I represented. Stability, respectability, a good wife who didn't ask too many questions. But he'd been planning his exit the whole time, making sure I'd have nothing when he left. Too bad for him, I'd been planning too. The message came out of nowhere, from someone I hadn't thought about in years. Cameron. A guy I'd dated in college before Derek. Sweet. Kind. We'd ended things amicably when I moved for work. He'd seen my name tagged in some breakup thread on social media. Hey, heard you're going through something? Want to grab coffee? I almost said no, but I was tired of sitting in my house, tired of pretending everything was fine, so I said yes. We met at a neutral coffee shop. He looked older, good, confident, asked how I was, really asked, listened to the whole story without interrupting. When I finished, he just shook his head. You deserve so much better. Thanks, I'm serious, you were always too good for anyone who didn't see your worth. The way he looked at me, familiar, warm, interested. He leaned in slightly and I pulled back. Cameron, I can't. I know, this isn't about finding someone else, it's about remembering who I am. He nodded slowly. You're right, I'm sorry. Don't be. Thank you for listening. We parted as friends, and I drove home feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Clarity. This wasn't about revenge relationships. This wasn't about replacing Derek. This was about rebuilding myself, from the ground up, alone. And that felt right. I drove to my parents' house on Sunday, needed to tell them before they heard it from someone else. Sat them down in their living room, explained everything, showed them the messages, the photos, the evidence, expected support, expected anger on my behalf. My mother set down her coffee carefully. Marriage is hard, Naomi. I blinked. What? Every marriage goes through rough patches. He's been cheating for months with my best friend. My father leaned forward. What did you do to drive him to this? The question hung in the air. What did I do? As if this was my fault, as if working hard and trusting my husband made me responsible for his betrayal. I didn't drive him anywhere. He made choices. You've always been so focused on your career, my mother interrupted. Maybe if you'd paid more attention to your marriage. I stood up. You're blaming me. We're not blaming. Yes, you are. You're sitting here, looking at proof that my husband betrayed me, and you're asking what I did wrong. My father's expression hardened. Don't raise your voice. You raised me to stay silent, to be polite, to make everyone else comfortable. I grabbed my purse. That ends today. Naomi, I'm getting divorced. I'm rebuilding my life. And if you can't support me, then stay out of my way. I walked out and didn't look back. I came home from work on a Tuesday, late, tired, ready for this nightmare day to end. Put my key in the lock. It didn't turn. Tried again. Nothing. The locks had been changed. I stood there confused when I saw it. Garbage bags on the porch, filled with my clothes, my shoes, my personal items, everything thrown together like trash. My phone buzzed. A text from Derek. You've made this toxic. I need space. Stay somewhere else for a while. He'd locked me out of my own house. Without warning, without discussion. Just decided I didn't live there anymore. I called Patricia immediately. He changed the locks and put my stuff outside. Did you take anything? No, I called you first. Good. Take photos of everything. Don't touch anything yet. I'm calling the police for an escort. You have a legal right to be there. What about? This is illegal. And stupid. He just gave us ammunition. The police came. Made Derek let me back in. His face was furious. Humiliated. I gathered everything I needed and left anyway, because I didn't want to stay in that house anymore. Not with him. Not in the bed we'd shared. I wanted out. File the papers, I told Patricia. You sure? Yes, it's time. The divorce papers were served on a Saturday morning, at brunch, at the expensive restaurant downtown where Derek and Alexis apparently went every weekend now. I wasn't there, but Quinn was. She happened to be having brunch 2 tables away. Pure coincidence. Totally unplanned. She sent me live updates. Process server just walked in. He sees them. Derek looks confused. Server just handed him the papers, in front of everyone. Alexis just spilled her mimosa all over herself. Derek's face is so red. Half the restaurant is staring. He's trying to act casual, but his hands are shaking. This is amazing. I sat in my new temporary apartment, a sublet I'd found through work, and smiled. Because Patricia was right. Power is quiet. It doesn't show up and make a scene. It doesn't yell or cry or beg. It just hits where it hurts. Publicly, efficiently, perfectly. Derek had humiliated me by parading his affair, so I'd returned the favor by making sure everyone knew I was the one ending this, on my terms, my timeline, my way. Quinn sent one final text. They just left separately. She looked like she was crying. Good. Let them feel it. Let them realize this wasn't a romantic story. It was a mess. And they'd made it. The message came from a burner account. No profile picture. Generic username. But I knew who it was immediately. Please don't ruin us. Alexis, he's having a hard time. This is destroying him. I stared at the message. She was begging me to call off the divorce, to make this easier for them, as if I was the one who'd destroyed anything. As if I owed them mercy. Please, Naomi, we didn't mean to hurt you. I took a screenshot, sent it to Patricia. Then I replied, with a photo. The house title showing only Derek's name, and one sentence. Spiral harder. I blocked the account, and every possible variation I could think of, because Alexis didn't get to play victim. She didn't get to rewrite this story. She'd made choices. So had Derek. And now they got to live with the consequences. Without my forgiveness, without my understanding, without any part of me at all. Because I was done trying to make sense of their choices. Done making things easier for people who'd made everything harder for me. Just done. And it felt incredible. Patricia called me into her office for an emergency meeting. We have a problem. My stomach dropped. What? She slid papers across her desk. Derek's been taking out loans, multiple loans, using your joint assets as collateral. What? He's broke, completely over-leveraged, probably has been for months. I scanned the documents. Loan after loan, payday advances, credit cards maxed out, $50,000 in debt, debt I'd known nothing about. How is this possible? Because the house was in his name. The car, he used everything as collateral. So I'm liable? No, not if we can prove you had no knowledge of this, which you didn't. She leaned back. This is why he's been so nice lately, why he suggested reconciliation, why he wanted you to sign those refinancing papers. He needed my signature. Exactly, he's desperate. I thought about all the times Derek had brought up updating our estate planning. How he'd left documents for me to sign on the counter. How he'd seemed annoyed when I said I wanted to read everything first. He hadn't been planning our future. He'd been trying to trap me in his debt. What do we do? We make sure the divorce decree absolves you of any debt incurred without your knowledge or consent. Patricia smiled grimly. He tried to bury you. Instead, he buried himself. Derek called me at 11 p.m., crying, actually sobbing. Naomi, please, I can't do this. I'd been asleep, woke up confused. Derek? I miss you. I miss us. I was so stupid. You're drunk. I'm lost. She's not who I thought she was. I sat up, wide awake now. Are you seriously calling me to complain about your affair partner? She's nothing like you. She's shallow and demanding and… Stop. Please, can we just talk? Can we figure this out? There's nothing to figure out. I made a mistake. Multiple mistakes. With multiple women over multiple months. Silence. You knew about the others? I know everything, Derek. Every text, every lie, every person. Naomi, you didn't call because you miss me. You called because you're broke and scared and finally realizing your choices have consequences. That's not. You wanted out, you got out. You wanted Alexis, you've got her. Now live with it. I love you. No. You loved what I represented. Stability. Someone who cleaned up your messes. Someone who didn't ask too many questions. I took a breath, but I'm not that person anymore. Please. Goodbye, Derek. I hung up, blocked his number, and went back to sleep, feeling nothing. Absolutely nothing, and that felt like victory. Alexis went live on Instagram. Quinn sent me the link. You have to see this. I watched. Alexis crying, makeup running, hair messy. I'm so tired of being vilified, she sobbed. Naomi is trying to ruin my life, to destroy my happiness. She went on for 12 minutes. About how I was jealous, about how Derek had been unhappy for years, about how their love was real, about how I was making everything harder out of spite. The comments weren't kind. Girl, you slept with her husband. You ruined her life first. This is embarrassing. Delete this. The audacity. You're the villain here and you don't even see it. People screen recorded it, shared it, made it go viral for all the wrong reasons. Alexis became a cautionary tale, a meme, an example of what not to do. She deactivated her account 2 days later, deleted everything, disappeared from social media completely. Quinn texted, "Karma is so satisfying to watch." I didn't respond, just saved a copy of the video. Because someday, when people asked what happened, I'd have proof, not just of the affair, but of how they tried to make me the villain, and failed spectacularly. The final settlement hearing was brief. We sat across from each other in the courthouse. Derek looked terrible, thinner, older, defeated. His lawyer looked exhausted, mine looked confident. The judge reviewed our settlement agreement. Patricia had negotiated everything. I got the house, the car, half of Derek's retirement account, the one he'd funded before his debt spiral, and complete absolution from any debt he'd incurred. Derek got silence, and the debt, all $50,000 of it. His lawyer tried to argue. Your Honor, that's unreasonable. Mr. Ray has incurred this debt secretly, using marital assets as collateral without his wife's knowledge or consent. That's not unreasonable, that's justice. The judge looked at Derek. You tried to financially trap your wife while conducting multiple affairs. The court finds in favor of Mrs. Reyes on all counts. Bang, gavel down. It was over. Derek sat there, stunned. I stood up, walked out, without looking back. Patricia caught up with me in the hallway. You okay? I'm free. Yes, you are. We shook hands, and I drove to my house now, completely mine, and started planning what came next. The LinkedIn notification popped up 2 weeks later. Derek's profile had changed, no longer employed. I clicked through to his company's page. Someone I knew still worked there. I messaged her carefully. Saw Derek left? Everything okay? She responded fast. Girl? HR found out about his relationship with a colleague. Alexis worked there? No, someone else. Apparently it wasn't just you. He'd been inappropriate with multiple coworkers. Seriously? Yeah, they investigated after someone filed a complaint. Found a whole pattern, affairs, harassment, using company resources for personal relationships. Wow. They gave him a choice, resign or be fired with cause. He resigned. I set down my phone. Derek wasn't just a cheater. He was a pattern. A serial betrayer. Someone who didn't just ruin our marriage, but potentially multiple women's careers, their emotional well-being, their trust, and now he'd lost everything. His wife, his house, his reputation, his job, all because he couldn't stop lying, couldn't stop cheating, couldn't stop hurting people. I didn't feel victorious, just sad. For the man I'd thought he was, who'd never really existed at all. Alexis's final message came months later. A text from yet another burner number. No greeting, no preamble, just you won. Are you happy now? I stared at it. Thought about responding, about explaining that this was never about winning. That you can't win when your marriage ends, when your best friend betrays you, when your life implodes. But I didn't, because Alexis still didn't get it. Still saw this as a competition. Still thought I'd done all this for revenge. Instead of survival, instead of self-respect. Instead of refusing to let people destroy me and face no consequences. I deleted the message, didn't block the number, just deleted it and moved on. Because Alexis didn't deserve my anger anymore. Didn't deserve my attention. Didn't deserve any part of my emotional energy. She was just someone I used to know who'd made terrible choices and would have to live with them, without my forgiveness, without my understanding, without anything from me at all. I'd won by walking away, by rebuilding, by choosing myself. That was the only victory that mattered. 6 months after the divorce, I launched something new, a consulting business, helping people navigate divorce. Not legal advice, I wasn't a lawyer, but emotional support, practical strategies, rebuilding plans. I called it Phoenix Rising Recovery Coaching. Wait, can't use Phoenix. I called it Renewal Recovery Coaching. Clients came faster than expected. Women leaving cheating husbands, men whose wives had betrayed them, people who felt broken and needed guidance. I shared my story carefully, not for sympathy, but so they'd know they weren't alone, that survival was possible, that you could rebuild stronger. I started a podcast, got invited to speak at workshops, shared strategies for documenting everything, protecting yourself financially, building emotional resilience, creating exit plans, rebuilding after betrayal. The business grew. I hired 2 assistants, expanded into online courses, built a community of survivors who supported each other, and every day I woke up knowing I was helping people, turning my pain into purpose, my trauma into transformation. Derek had tried to destroy me. Instead, he'd shown me exactly who I was capable of becoming. Strong, independent, unbreakable, and I'd never been more grateful. The event was at a hotel downtown, a workshop on emotional recovery after betrayal. I was the keynote speaker. The room was packed, over 200 people. I stood backstage, nervous but ready. Then I saw him. Derek, sitting in the back row, wearing a baseball cap, sunglasses, like he thought I wouldn't notice. My heart jumped, but I didn't panic, just took a deep breath, walked onto that stage and gave my speech. About betrayal, about healing, about becoming who you're meant to be. I didn't look at him, didn't acknowledge him, just spoke to the room. To the people who'd come seeking help, to the survivors ready to rebuild. When I finished, the applause was thunderous. Questions, photos, people thanking me. I looked toward the back row. Derek was gone. He'd watched, seen what I'd become, and left. Without a word, without confrontation, without anything. Later, Quinn texted, heard Derek showed up. Yeah. You okay? More than okay. He saw exactly what he lost. Good, he should. I smiled, because my presence had been the closure. Not words, not arguments, just proof that I'd survived and thrived without him. I heard through mutual acquaintances what happened to Derek. He moved back in with his parents, lost his condo when he couldn't make payments. The job market wasn't kind to someone fired for misconduct. Alexis had left him months ago. Apparently, dating a broke, unemployed cheater wasn't as romantic as she'd imagined. His social media was angry tweets and bitter posts about gold diggers and disloyal people. Meanwhile, I'd moved into a new condo, bright, modern, all mine. I planted herbs on my balcony, basil, mint, rosemary, cooked meals I actually enjoyed instead of what Derek liked. Dated casually, nothing serious, just remembering what it felt like to be valued. My business thrived, my podcast grew, I was published in a wellness magazine, and every single morning I woke up and breathed, deeply, freely, peacefully. No lies, no betrayal, no pretending, just me, happy. Whole, unbroken. People asked if I'd ever forgive Derek. I'd smile and say, forgiveness is for him to earn, not for me to give. I've just moved on. Because karma hadn't struck Derek. He'd walked straight into it, made every choice that led to his downfall, while I'd made different choices. To document, to prepare, to protect myself, to rebuild, to help others to thrive. And as I sat on my balcony, watering my herbs, watching the sunset, I whispered the words that had become my mantra. I don't need his apology. I just needed to become who I was always meant to be. And I had, finally, completely, beautifully. The woman Derek had underestimated was now the woman he'd never deserve, and I'd never looked back.